Well, hey Chris, how are you?
Good afternoon, Sharon. Doing well. How are you doing?
I am doing well. It's almost a year of COVID. How about
Yes.
that? Yes. And so we're still working from home. For those who don't know me, I'm Sharon Porter. I am the Senior Vice President of Public Relations for Enlivian. And I'm here with my colleague and good buddy.
I am Chris Campbell. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm the Senior Vice President of Community Partnerships for the Core Division of Enlivian.
Yeah, unfortunately, our names went away, so people would generally
Ah,
see our names. I don't know why that has happened. But today, listen, we are going to be talking about the vaccine. Obviously, we've all been dealing with COVID for the past year. We're dealing now with getting the vaccine rollout. We are not experts, but we have brought an expert onto the show today, and that is Dr. Raynard Washington, who is with the Mecklenburg County Department of Health. So we have him here to answer all of our questions about the vaccine and is it right, and if taking the vaccine is right for us.
right.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon. How are you, Dr. Washington?
I'm doing great.
Good. So thank you for being a partner with us. Can you talk about, Dr. Washington, talk about the partnership that we've had together and getting folks vaccinated in our communities?
Sure. So first off, thanks for having me today. So COVID-19 vaccines are, the vaccine rollout is happening pretty quickly. We have been working to make vaccine as widely available in the county as possible. And one of those important things that we did, so let me just sort of to level set with everybody. We have a limited number of vaccines right now. We don't have enough vaccines to give one to every single person that may want them or need them. And so we had to prioritize groupings. Those prioritizations were based on a person's risk of being infected with COVID, as well as a person's risk of having severe disease or complications or having to be hospitalized or risk of dying from COVID. So we wanted to put those people at the front of the line, those who are at greatest risk of getting it and those at greatest risk of having severe complications. One of those groups at great risk are adults who are over the age of 65. If you look at the folks who've been mostly hospitalized and mostly died as a result of COVID-19 infection, our older adults are most vulnerable and more likely to die or require hospitalization. So we had to prioritize those folks, especially those living in congregate settings. So we also wanted to make sure that as we are rolling out the vaccine, that we're doing so in an equitable way. And so partnering with Enlivian to actually bring vaccines on site to many of the senior living facilities to those adults who are eligible really allowed us an opportunity to, one, make sure that we were reaching some of the most vulnerable individuals, but that we made it as easy as possible. And so partnering with you guys to be able to host clinics on site at your senior living properties was a incredible partnership to make sure that we got those folks vaccinated.
Yeah, it was a fantastic effort and thank you, Dr. Washington. I can't tell you enough how much we appreciate that. I was able to really experience Sharon side by side working with Dr. Washington and his team. It's a lot of work. It's hard work. So my hat's off to like the larger sites that are doing it, because I can only imagine, we were averaging about 30 some per site, but just imagine the hundreds that some of these facilities set up. So just to give some context real quick, Sharon, we have 9 senior sites. So the health department led by Dr. Washington they were great about being very strategic and breaking down those 9 sites into 3 cohorts. So we would hit 3 cohorts or 3 sites each day that we were delivering the vaccines. And so again, as he said, I saw everything from tears to people just standing up and clapping and just being really excited about being able to have this opportunity to receive their vaccine.
I saw that myself. So, but let's just get into it, because there's a lot of conversation about people in communities of color who've been hesitant about taking and getting the vaccine. So it doesn't have to be a community of color, quite frankly, it can be anybody who's hesitant, but the people we serve are largely in communities of color. So let's just talk about some of the myths and the facts about the vaccine. So first off, why do you believe people are hesitant about it?
I think that's a great question. I talk to a lot of people, and I think as you just alluded to or said, anybody can be hesitant. You don't have to, it's not just in communities of color. I think national surveys that have happened have demonstrated that there's certainly some inequities in terms of more people of color being hesitant compared to other individuals. But it can cover, a myriad of races or age groups. It really covers the gamut. And there are a lot of reasons. I mean, some people are, I think the most common reason that we hear is just really uncertainty around whether or not the vaccine contains the virus and they're going to give you COVID in the shot. And obviously people concerned about potentially being infected, which is not true. The second I hear, and that is one of the most important things we try to emphasize, especially with these vaccines, because with some vaccines, the vaccine does contain deactivated or parts of the virus that have been killed, but these vaccines actually don't even contain that. So there's virtually no way the vaccine can cause a COVID infection. What can happen, though, as a person, the vaccines do take several weeks to be effective, and the two of them require 2 doses. And so the Pfizer requires 1 dose and then a second dose or booster shot 3 weeks later, and the Moderna requires a booster shot 4 weeks later. And so in that time, a person could be potentially exposed, right? So once you get your vaccine, it doesn't, unless you go back to where you live and stay there for 4 weeks, there's the risk that you might come into contact with somebody in that period before your body has an opportunity to fully develop immunity. And so it's not, so people have gotten the virus after they've gotten their first dose, for example, because they've been exposed and again, their body hasn't developed full immunity. But that can turn into people saying in the community, oh, I got the shot and it gave me COVID. And in fact, there's no viral particles inside it. Another common, I guess, reason why people express concerns about the vaccine or feel hesitant about getting it is just the amount of time it's taken to develop the vaccine and the fact that it's happened so expeditiously. And part of that has to do with messaging and just making sure, again, people have the facts about what happened and what all went into the process. I was just talking with someone last night and our community was hesitant. And I was explaining to her that, yes, it was quick. Typically, it takes several years to develop and produce and distribute a vaccine, especially a new one. In this case, everything happened in a period of about 12 months, which is pretty accelerated. But what happened in the case of COVID-19, because it's a global pandemic, and because of the efforts of our federal government, as well as the governments of many developed countries across the globe, and all of whom were immediately impacted, essentially all of the typical sort of dynamics of development, a lot of the barriers that people typically run into, a lot of the financial risks that's typically associated with it, a lot of the competition that's typically associated with it, we saw a lot of that go away. And so we had a situation where essentially our science community was given unlimited resources with no risk in terms of business risk to develop these vaccines in combination and partnership with one another. And you can see it even just like, for example, the Pfizer vaccine was really a partnership between 2 organizations. And so really, and as well as our scientists come a long way over the years. And so we were able to quickly identify the virus we were able to share with the entire globe the genetic sequence of the virus so that the scientific community could quickly start to figure out how to create a vaccine that could protect against it. So
what you're saying in essence is that there were people all over the world working on this vaccine, and that in essence helped us get there faster.
Yes, and they had unlimited resources almost.
Unlimited resources.
So Dr. Washington, yeah. I'm sorry. Go right ahead. I'll let you finish that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so they had unlimited resources, which almost never happens.
Yeah. Oh, right. So let me get down to maybe a couple basic questions that I always get, and even though they might be simple questions, they require really some careful thought in the response. So when someone says, "Why should I be vaccinated?" What is your response to that question?
Yeah, so the first and most important reason is that vaccination offers a protection for you as an individual. So it will protect you. All 3 vaccines have been demonstrated to be safe and effective at protecting people from severe complications due to COVID. So if you do get infected by COVID, you prepare your body for that infection and for a response to that infection so that you don't end up having severe complications, you don't require a hospitalization, or you don't get to a point where your body is really attacking itself. So it's self-protection. So that's the first most important reason, because especially those who are more vulnerable and could potentially have really severe complications due to COVID, it protects them. The second and other very important reason is that it helps protect others. As we think about our community and our family and really wanting to make sure that we move beyond the challenges of this pandemic, we got to move our community to a point of immunity so that this virus is not plaguing us as a community. And so it helps protect those that we love and that we are in constant contact with. And as I know, as you've heard a lot of people say at the vaccine clinics, it opens a door for folks to be able to get back to some sense of normalcy. It opens the door to people being able to hug each other and visit with each other and have those social connections that are so important for all of us.
No, that's important, and thank you for sharing that. So, is it fair to say that even though you may have been vaccinated, you can still contract the virus?
Yeah, so certainly, especially given if you're receiving one of the 2-dose series, or if you're receiving the Johnson & Johnson, which is a single dose. Again, the Johnson & Johnson takes about 28 days from when you get the shot to develop full immunity. And then the same with the Pfizer and the Moderna, about 2 weeks after your second dose is when we believe you have the greatest level of protection. So that's a long period of time. And if COVID is rapidly spreading in the community, there's always obviously a risk of you being exposed to someone if you're not well protected. So it is not impossible, and certainly we don't want to be dishonest with people to give that impression. But because individuals are vaccinated, even with that first dose and almost immediately following that first dose within a week or so, it does offer some level of protection from severe illness. So that protection to even if you get infected, keeping you from getting really, really sick starts when you first start that series. And so it's important to recognize that even if you do get infected with COVID after you receive your first or second shot, the likelihood that you'll have any kind of severe complications is very, very, very low.
So, Dr. Washington, in terms of masks, so masks have been, it's hard to imagine where a mask can be so politicized, or there's opinions from very polarizing, But so let's talk about masks in terms of, so say I've gone through the vaccines. I received either my one with Johnson & Johnson or my two with the other two. And I've gone through a period of time even after that. So I'm in that range where I think I'm good to go, right? Should I still be wearing a mask?
Yeah,
and what do you think the value is of masks, kind of even going forward, even beyond?
Yeah, so for right now, so one of the things that, and another one, I believe in being fully honest and transparent with our community. One of the things we're still learning about the vaccines is how effective they are at preventing you from transmitting the virus to someone else. So you will be protected and you won't have any complications, or you won't develop a full infection. Whether or not you still have the ability to transmit viral particles at all is a question, or sort of be a carrier. And so that's one thing that is actively being studied in trials and for all three of the vaccines that are in place. And we expect the guidance around transmission. And there were some early results, or some new results that came out just a couple days ago that are really promising, that shows that the Pfizer vaccine does reduce the ability for you to transmit the virus at a very high level of effectiveness. And so that's great, because if that's giving us an early indication that we may be at a point where we won't be wearing masks pretty soon, not pretty soon, but in the next 6 months. So I think that's encouraging for us. So we expect that pretty soon, in the next several months, we'll learn from the CDC and others around what we believe to be best guidance, what protections the vaccine offers, and what level of normalcy we'll get back to. But that being said, they have given us at least some early guidance. And so right now, if you get vaccinated and you complete your vaccine series, and you've gone 2 weeks after the second dose for Pfizer, Moderna, or 28 days beyond the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, you are eligible. At that time, it is safe for you to have small gatherings with other people who've also been vaccinated, and preferably in your home and not out and about. It's also safe for you to be around other individuals who have not been vaccinated. Again, without a mask on, but preferably not any individuals that have high risk conditions or are at high risk for complications. So, for example, older adults or folks with underlying chronic illness, you still want to make sure you're masked around those individuals, even inside your home. But open a small window. The last thing that it offers you in terms of once you become vaccinated, if you've been exposed to someone that has COVID, you no longer have to quarantine or get tested. And that's been a big challenge, as you all know. Once you've been in close contact with somebody with COVID, you have to go home for a long time and you have to get tested. So that restriction or guidance has been lifted. So we are starting to see some easing of restrictions for folks who've been vaccinated.
So what if you are a person with food allergies? How does taking the vaccine impact having allergies?
Yeah, so certainly there are no contraindications for individuals who have food allergies. We are cautious around individuals who have had allergic reactions previously to other vaccines like the flu shot or shingle shot. And those individuals, again, it's not that they can't take the vaccine or receive it, it's that they just have to stay a little bit longer in the post-vaccination period to make sure they don't have a physical reaction to the vaccine. The only time where the vaccine is contraindicated really is when an individual is allergic to one of the products or something that's a material that's in the vaccine itself. And so all of them have labels, which will read that you receive information about before you get vaccinated. And most folks who have allergies to the common components or elements of the vaccine are aware of those allergies because it's common for any vaccine, really. And again, in some cases, it's still permissible. In others, there's just levels of precautions that need to be taken. But whenever you get your shot, the clinician will consult with you right before and ask you a series of questions just to make sure we don't do anything, that there's no special considerations for that individual. Most folks are, generally speaking, there aren't a lot of contraindications for people.
Okay.
So, Dr. Washington, in terms of the vaccine when it comes to the two-shot vaccines, a lot of the conversations, at home with families, kind of, when you see your friends, you talk about the vaccine, people are always saying, oh, the first shot, I was good. The second shot, oh my God.
Second shot. Yes.
Yeah, it made me feel really bad. Can you talk about that? I mean, I know it's probably a very individual thing, right? But what is your perspective on that?
It's funny. We get so many differing reactions or thoughts about this. So it is true. Typically with the first shot, people only have very mild symptoms, and it's usually only a sore arm, very similar to having a flu shot. After the second shot, especially with the Moderna vaccine, people more commonly will have other symptoms. So they may develop a very low-grade fever, or they may start to have some type of body aches or chills, sort of flu-like symptoms. And again, others have no reaction at all. So some people, their second time, it's just another sore arm and it goes away in just a day. But that reaction is not the shot itself. That reaction is your body saying, oh, I recognize what just came in, and I'm now launching an immune response to this thing that I now know is what it looks like. So I know that the contents of the vaccine contains instructions for that spike protein that's on the COVID-19. And so basically, it's kind of, to me, it's actually reassuring to have a little bit of a response. I personally, when I got my second shot, I got the Pfizer vaccine. I didn't have any kind of symptoms or reactions. So I was like, oh, maybe I need another one. But no, just kidding.
Well, so first of all, let me just say to anyone who's watching us, you can feel free to put comments in our chat. We'll be happy to ask while we have Dr. Washington online. I've got a question for you. So we had in our senior sites, Chris, and you can verify this, we had a number of people who came for their first shot but didn't come for their second shot. Not a lot of people, but we had people who didn't come get their second. Is it necessary to get the second shot? What does the second shot do?
Yeah, so certainly, yes, it's essential that folks who receive their first shot of Pfizer Moderna get their second shot. So it is absolutely essential. While it is believed that the single dose does offer some level of protection by itself, it's important to get the optimal level of protection, which involves having both shots, so the first and the second. And so we want to make sure that folks, both of them were the research and the data that supported their authorization for use support that folks get both the first and the second shot, and that's what offers the greatest level of protection. So we encourage folks, even if they still haven't gotten their second shot, to find an opportunity to do so, and we're happy to work with folks to help get them into a spot where they can get a second shot. We just get the second shot. If you don't get it at the 21-day and the 28-day mark as you're supposed to, that's also okay. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't still get it. So if you miss the 28 days, you still got some time to still get the second shot. So we encourage folks to do it. And it's important, though, to try to get that, not to wait too long, because the way that the vaccines are shipped to us as providers, we get our first shots and then we get our second shots on schedule 3 weeks later. And after 42 days, we're able to use your second shot as someone else's first shot. So if you don't you can use it. And we're going to use it, so you shouldn't wait too long.
Dr. Washington, when you look at the length of time as far as immunity or how long it will protect you in some respect, and I think people just need to be clear. You get the vaccine, you go through the process. Doesn't mean you can't catch the vaccine again, right? And so, right, the vaccine, the virus. That being said, so how long though? I mean, I know the science is always still, working.
Yeah. Yeah, we are. There are a lot of factors that are really driving sort of what we know and what we don't know at this point as it relates to if this is going to be something that's going to require annual shot or annual booster like the flu shot. Part of that's going to be driven by how much the virus has an opportunity to mutate and how many variants, how many of those mutations are have any impact. So you guys have probably heard about the strains, the various strains, and some that are more infectious. As that happens, we have to make sure the vaccines actually produce antibodies that work against those. So right now, it looks promising. We're seeing really good results in terms of preventing spread of those, even some of the more virulent strains. That being said, we don't know yet if we're going to have to do booster shots next year. And so I think we will, right now, early evidence shows that immunity does seem to continue, even at the 10, 11, and 12-month mark. But we're continuing to follow those folks who are in the earlier phases of trials, and they test their bodies for antibodies and the level of antibody. And that will help us understand whether or not we need to offer booster shots at some point in the near future.
Yeah. So let's talk about these extra strains, because I know I've heard about this stuff in England, in South Africa.
Yeah.
I mean, how at least, and we don't know. I mean, or I don't know. I certainly don't know. How protective are we? Do we feel, at least at this point? And I understand that maybe Moderna might be a little bit. Johnson & Johnson's, because it came later, might be a bit more protective on that, on the more recent strains, or
no. So the right now early evidence shows, at least with the studies that we're learning from, for example, in the UK, where those strains are a little bit more predominant, and they're becoming more predominant here in the US as well. Is that it does seem that the vaccine is still protective against complications and illness. I think where people are focusing in on is how effective they are at transmission. And protecting against people developing enough viral particles in their body for there to be a detectable level of them, so that they would, quote unquote, test positive. So they're still learning that, but right now the early evidence seems really promising that they will be protective against the various mutations. But again, that's why it's so important for us to continue to wear a mask and to slow the spread of the virus, because every time a new person gets infected, that gives the virus a chance to mutate, and more mutations could develop into consequential mutations that could mean that we have a new strain that we have to worry about. So, that's why we're so cautious with folks and asking people to continue to stick with us to mitigate the virus, because we got to get everybody vaccinated.
How long do you think it will be before we get to what's called the herd immunity, right? With the way things are, it looks like with the new administration, things are certainly moving a lot faster.
Yeah, so definitely with the vaccine rollout, things are moving faster than we all anticipated, I would say. The third vaccine is online now, which is great because that is a single dose series, so it allows us to get through more people more quickly. So I do think that we'll get to a point of, part of one of the biggest concerns right now is just making sure that everyone knows they got to get their shot when it's their turn. And so we got to sort of overcome some of these barriers of hesitancy to make sure that as we are potentially going to have enough vaccine supply in the next 6 weeks, which is kind of amazing. But the idea that we'll have enough vaccine for every adult in the next 6 to 8 weeks is pretty impressive. We're not talking months, we're talking weeks now. So that's exciting. And so once we get to that point and are able to get through administration and get vaccines in arms, and obviously we could be at a point, and I think the president said last night, we could have a fairly normal 4th of July holiday if we get enough of our adults vaccinated. Now, we still have kids. And so both of the vaccines, all 3 vaccines are, except for the Pfizer, are only authorized for adults 18 and over. And for Pfizer, it's authorized for 16 and 17-year-olds as well. So there are clinical trials happening right now in kids to confirm the safety and effectiveness as well as the appropriate dosage for children. And so that's happening in real time. I was just learned yesterday that we will be recruiting for one of those trials for Moderna here in Mecklenburg County pretty soon, hot off the press. So we will be having a child trial here in Mecklenburg County for one of the vaccines. And so that's also very exciting because as we move into the summer, hopefully we can move beyond adults and start vaccinating our kids as soon as possible.
So Dr. Wash,
They has to go back to the FDA for review and approval. The studies have to happen, so it'll probably be winter before we get to that. But
Gotcha. So Dr. Washington, we kind of, I'm gonna save this kind of heavy question towards the end here. I know we talked a little bit in the beginning about just perspectives in terms of people of color and medicine and specifically vaccines. And I think interactions like this are big. It helps when you talk about breaking some of that mistrust. Can you talk a little bit about, from your perspective, maybe some other ways, or what are some of the things that we could do as a community to try to address some of that mistrust with maybe medicine in general and people of color and the vaccine even?
Yeah, so in public health, we are fully aware and sensitive to the challenges of trust in communities of color as it relates to all kinds of systems. People of color have challenges with not just healthcare and public health, but the judicial system and justice and law enforcement and all those kinds of challenges. And so we can't pretend they don't exist. In this context, specifically related to the vaccine, one of the most important things we have to do is as Sean was mentioning earlier, is get to the facts, right? Like make sure that people have the facts in front of them. And it cannot be sort of just me talking to people. It can't just be Gibby talking to folks. It has to be us talking to people who can talk to other people, who can talk to other people, who can talk to other people. And that's how we communicate. And especially, as we all 3 know, in communities of color, we trust the people we trust, right? And so we got to make sure that those that people trust have the facts so that when they want to know or they have a question about it, they can go to somebody they trust to get an answer, whether that is a pastor or whether that is a cousin or a grandmother. And so we have to work really, really hard to make sure that we are sort of passing the right messages down the chain, sort of the gossip chain, and people are passing the facts around. And with in the world of social media, and there's ability for anybody to create a platform, there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of noise, and so we got to work extra hard in communities of color to make sure that we have the facts and that we're passing the facts around to those that we know and trust. And that's really the only way for it to happen. And that takes conversation. That takes people talking to each other. It's not there's no turnkey. It's not something we can buy. It's not a quick answer. It's going to take conversation. And what's happened since last fall, where we had hesitancy rates that were much higher in the Black community, and it's gotten much better, actually. And that's just from people talking, people getting information, people seeing other people's stories, which is a really effective way of helping to get people beyond hesitancy, is sort of seeing folks they trust the system. So seeing pastors and seeing our local leaders and others. And that's the way that takes time. We're not expecting to get over that hump overnight, and we're here to get the work done and need folks and other stakeholders like Livian and others to help us in that communication and creating opportunities to talk to people.
Listen, thank you for joining us today. It's been a tremendous talk. And I hope it's been beneficial for anyone who's been watching. This will be continuing to air on social media again. So we can't thank you enough. And so I'm going to make sure that we put contact information. There's a hotline or a vaccine hotline, right, that people can call, or a COVID hotline, right? So any questions that you have that maybe we didn't go over here, you can contact Mecklenburg Health Department at 980-314-9100. You can also go to their website, mecnc.gov/health department. And then you can also follow them on social media, on Facebook at Mecklenburg County, on Instagram at Mecklenburg County, and on Twitter at Meck County. Dr. Washington, thank you again.
My pleasure.
For your time. Thank you for your partnership. And thank you really for being on the front line. We need you people. You are our heroes.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you all.
Appreciate everything. Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye. Take care.